The imperial hall of the Draconic sovereignty stretched vast and imposing, its crystalline pillars reaching toward a ceiling that shimmered with captured starlight. Emperor Dravak sat upon his throne of obsidian and gold, his scales reflecting the crimson hue of 1,000 conquered suns. Around him, the assembled lords of 17 star systems bowed low, their reptilian forms radiating respect and fear in equal measure. Today was the ceremony that would cement his dynasty forever. "Bring forth the Covenant of Ages," Dravak commanded, his voice resonating through the hall like rolling thunder. 2 guards, each the size of a small shuttle, carried forward an ornate chest. Within it lay a document that predated stellar cartography itself, the original treaty signed by the first dragons, the agreement that had established their dominion over the known galaxy. Its authenticity had never been questioned. How could it be? The document bore the psychic imprints of the Ancient Ones, marks that could not be replicated by any known technology. But then she spoke. "It's a forgery." The voice cut through the ceremonial silence like a laser through hull plating. Every head turned toward the source, a human girl, barely into her 20s by Terran reckoning, standing among the diplomatic observers. Her name was Celia, part of humanity's recently established embassy to the Draconic sovereignty. Dravak's eyes narrowed to slits of molten gold. "What did you say, human?" Celia stepped forward, her slight frame dwarfed by the gathered dignitaries. She wore no armor, carried no weapons, just a simple gray suit and a datapad clutched in her hands. "I said it's a forgery, Your Eminence. That document is fake." A ripple of outrage swept through the hall. Several lords hissed, their crests flaring in indignation. To question the Covenant was to question the very foundation of their civilization. It was heresy of the highest order. "You dare," one of the lords began, but Dravak raised a clawed hand, silencing him instantly. "Explain yourself, human. Choose your words carefully, for they may be your last." Celia's heart hammered in her chest, but her voice remained steady. Humans had not clawed their way from Terra's gravity well by cowering before larger predators. "May I approach the document, Your Eminence?" Dravak gestured lazily, confident that whatever delusion this creature harbored would be swiftly dispelled. "Proceed." She walked to the chest, ignoring the hostile glares burning into her back. The Covenant lay before her, its surface covered in flowing script that seemed to shift and breathe. To the dragons, it radiated authenticity. To Celia's trained eyes, it screamed deception. "The psychic imprints are impressive," she began, pulling out a small scanning device from her pocket. "Almost perfect, actually. Whoever created this forgery understood Draconic psychic signature technology better than most of your own scientists." "Impossible," Dravak growled, but something in his tone had changed. "The problem," Celia continued, activating her scanner, "is that they didn't account for human analysis methods. We don't rely on psychic impressions, we look at the physical substrate." She pointed to the document's edge. "This material is advertised as primordial parchment, harvested from the nebula where your ancestors first achieved sentience. But human spectroscopy tells a different story." She displayed her datapad's readout for all to see. "The molecular degradation pattern is wrong. Primordial parchment degrades at a specific rate due to exposure to cosmic radiation. This document shows degradation consistent with only 3,000 years of age, not the 30,000 claimed." The hall fell silent. Dravak leaned forward, his massive form suddenly tense. "Furthermore," Celia pressed on, "the ink contains trace elements of thorium-232, which wasn't discovered by any species in this sector until the Galactic Renaissance period, roughly 4,000 years ago. It literally could not have been used to write a document dated 26,000 years earlier." She looked up at the Emperor, meeting his gaze without flinching. "Someone created this forgery relatively recently, probably within the last 3 millennia, and used advanced psychic technology to fool every draconic authentication system. But they couldn't fool basic chemistry." Dravak stood, his towering form casting a shadow across the entire assembly. For a moment, Celia thought she had signed her death warrant. But then, The Emperor did something that shocked every being in attendance. He laughed. It was not a gentle sound. It rolled through the hall like an avalanche, powerful and terrible. "Bring me, Lord Zethris," he commanded. Within moments, one of the High Lords, an ancient dragon whose scales bore the patina of millennia, was brought forward. His expression had already turned from arrogance to ashen terror. 15 generations, Dravak said, his voice dangerously soft. For 15 generations, your family has served as keepers of the covenant, and now this human child, barely old enough to understand the stars, has revealed what you have hidden. Lord Zethris collapsed, his body trembling. Your Eminence, I can explain. The only explanation I require is how long your ancestors have perpetuated this deception. Dravak turned to Celia. When was this forgery created? She checked her datapad again. Based on the decay patterns, approximately 2,800 standard years ago. Plus or minus a century. Dravak nodded slowly. The Zethris Ascension. When Lord Zethris's ancestor first became keeper. He looked down at the cowering noble. Your forefather destroyed the original covenant and replaced it with this fraud, didn't he? To hide whatever inconvenient truths the original contained. 1. The silence that followed was answer enough. Guards, take him to the Void Courts. His entire lineage will answer for this betrayal. As Lord Zethris was dragged away, screaming, Dravak turned his attention back to Celia. The human girl stood her ground, though she now fully understood how close to death she had been. Tell me, Celia of Terra, the Emperor said, descending from his throne to stand before her. Even seated, she barely reached his chest. Why did you speak? You must have known the risk. Celia swallowed hard. Because humanity believes in truth. Your Eminence. Even uncomfortable truth. Especially uncomfortable truth. We've learned the hard way that civilizations built on lies eventually crumble. We hoped you'd want to know. Dravak studied her for a long moment, then threw back his head and laughed again. Humanity. Such a young species, yet so audacious. You come to my empire, barely able to cross the stars, and you lecture me on truth. He leaned down, bringing his massive head level with hers. I like your species. Little human, you have fire. He straightened and addressed the assembly. Let it be known throughout the sovereignty. The human Celia has done our empire a great service. The covenant may be lost, but our honor is restored. And humanity. He smiled, showing rows of crystalline teeth. Humanity has earned our respect. As the hall erupted in discussion and the ceremony dissolved into chaos, Celia allowed herself to breathe. She had gambled everything on a simple human principle. That truth, backed by evidence and delivered with courage, could move even emperors. Behind her, the forgery smoldered as Dravak incinerated it with a breath of plasma. The real covenant might be lost to time, but something new had been forged in its place. A friendship between dragons and humans, built not on ancient documents, but on the foundation of undeniable truth. And that, Celia thought as she was escorted to what she hoped would be a celebration rather than an execution, was the most human thing of all.